What is he doing? Nah, bro, I think he's legit. You just can't do that in that situation. Nah, you couldn't be more wrong. Yeah, I could agree with that. This is the Poojie Podcast. What is going on, Pooch Crew? Thank you for being here for episode 138. Apologies for not getting episodes out the last 2 weeks. Things have been hectic and crazy, but we are back and committed more now than ever to getting you episodes weekly. So I look forward to continue pumping them out for you. Huge episode lined up today. Going to recap everything from the Jags-Giants. Going to look forward to the Jags-Broncos game in London and all other craziness, great, bad stuff from the NFL from Week 7 and before, and looking ahead to Week 8 and beyond. So I'm joined here today by Kyle. Appreciate you being here, my guy. Thanks. How you doing?
Of course, yeah. Happy to be here. Doing great. You know, these things are typically more fun, I would imagine, after a win and talk about the good stuff. But here we are. So appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, the Colts 24-0 win and the Jags 38-10 win over the Chargers were two of the best episodes we've ever put out on this podcast. I mean, you just can't find anything bad about those games. And then the Jags go off and lose 4 straight. Following that, when we're riding a high, the city's buzzing. You lose 29-21 to the Eagles. You lose 13-6 to the Texans in just a terrible game. Would you say the Texans' loss was the worst loss of the season by far?
Yeah, just because they're a team that the Texans, that has been toyed with by every other team that's played with or that's played them. Excuse me, and we go out there and make them look extremely competitive, make it look like they're much better than their record. So yeah, that was a disappointing one. Thought that was going to be a get-right game, and it ended up just making us spiral a little further.
Yeah, that was an opportunity for us to get to 3-2, looking ahead to a Colts game where we could have ended up going 3-0 in the division through 6 weeks of the season, which is just huge for any team. And you come out in Indianapolis, you have a 14-0 lead to start the game. You blow that game, lose 34-27. We all know what happened with Shaquille Griffin, ended up not playing the following week against the Giants. We were talking about this briefly this week against the Giants. Is this an isolated issue for Shaquille Griffin, or is this more of an issue of the secondary as a whole?
Yeah, so for Shaq Griffin, obviously, you know, want him to do well, being that he went to UCF. I feel like even when he was on the Seahawks, he was part of a team or you know, surroundings that maybe made him seem better than he was. But I do remember seeing some plays even then that he was getting beat on coverage. He was behind the ball, you know, couldn't get his head around. And I think we're seeing that some as he's on the Jaguars. And it's not just him, but across the board, a lot of missed tackles, guys out of position, over pursuing or not getting the angle, one of the two, and just not good tackling once they get past the front line. And it's been frustrating to see.
Yeah, and I think everyone saw it. Dameon Pierce on the Texans, I think he set the NFL record for most missed tackles caused in a game with like 13 or 14 against the Jags. And that's a rookie running back. Like, that's a third-round guy out of Florida who the Jags made look like Saquon Barkley, who then just popped off for 24 carries, 124 yards against this Jags team. And the Giants come into town not only with the 53 guys on the team and the 25 coaches, but what felt like 35, 40,000 fans invading Jacksonville. I'm assuming a lot of them are probably local, maybe within a few hours of Jacksonville, came up to see the game. But nonetheless, quite the home field advantage for the men from New York to get to 6-1 in this matchup.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Giants fans are everywhere. I feel like a lot of New Yorkers down in Florida. So not surprising. Most home Jags games seem to be at least 30% the other team. But when you play a team like the Giants, the Commanders, the Packers, you know, old teams that have their faithful, this tends to happen. And it certainly seemed at least half and half as far as the fan distribution was.
Yeah, it's a fun environment to be in from the standpoint of seeing a filled stadium. And as Jags fans, it's easy to talk about 2017, and it was fun playing in those games when the stadium was full of Jags fans. I was talking about this last night with Jacob, who is typically he's a regular on the podcast. I want your thoughts on this. What is the mindset of a player on both the home team and the away team in an environment like that when you're looking up and seeing so many of the opposing team fans? Are these guys professionals and able to look past it? Or does that provide a massive boost for a team?
I'd say for the most part, it doesn't phase them too much. I would imagine more so in critical situations where the crowd noise really is heard and felt. I think that as the Giants, if you look up and you see the clusters of blue everywhere, it is reassuring. It's not as maybe intimidating as if you go to other places, that have a more loud and robust and faithful fan base. And, there's nothing against the Jags. It's just I feel like there's fans of Jacksonville most of the time, but when their team comes into town, they root for the team. Maybe they moved to Florida in the 90s before the Jags were a thing. They were Giants fans. And then when they get a chance to see their team play, they root for their team. So, it could be disheartening on the other foot for the Jaguars. But I would imagine it's nothing too crazy that would really affect the outcome of the game.
Yeah, you have a lot of young guys on this team that look up into a stadium and, they're playing in the NFL. They're at the same level as this team across the sideline from them. And you look up and you see so many opposing fans. I mean, that's got to be an environment that these players are rarely put in, whether it was in high school, college, and now in the NFL, playing at, big blue blood programs, Clemson, Ohio State, whatever it is. You're used to seeing the home support. I have to imagine for some of the young guys. And when we say Giants fans are everywhere, we mean everywhere. After the game last night, we went out to Ale House to grab dinner, and we got seated right next to a Giants fan. And we were talking about the game, and I'm like, we just can't get rid of you. We can't – there's nothing we can do to run and hide. We just have to sit here and take it. But he was a cool guy. He said there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. He thinks that the team's moving in the right direction. And he said it was a lot closer game than they were expecting. So maybe that's the sentiment from all the Giants fans. But the 23-17 loss, let's get to the takeaways from the game aside from the fan turnout, because that was evident not only on TV but obviously in person. Takeaways from you coming off of that 6-point loss by 1 yard.
Yeah, just another frustrating loss. You alluded to it earlier. That is our 5th loss. All 5 losses have been by 1 possession. We are in these games. I think sometimes it takes a little bit for us to get started and get the ball rolling. And then some games we start out hot and then we try to hit cruise control and it ends up coming back and biting us in the ass. So I really don't know what to make as far as the game plan and what the issues are in that regard as playing a full 60 minutes. I will say the defense was a little undisciplined at times. There were some crucial penalties that hurt. But all in all, I think the Giants had 9 possessions, 2 touchdowns, 3 field goals, 2 punts, and a turnover on downs. We didn't force a turnover, which usually a 1 or 2 turnovers can really change the momentum of the game. You can tell that our front line are hungry. They're getting after it. We didn't have a sack, I don't believe, or we had 1 sack, I think. So that's kind of frustrating to see, but you can tell the motors on some of those guys getting after it. But again, just kind of the secondary getting beat across the middle, and then the linebackers with Danny Jones rushing. So my immediate takeaways were we didn't really plan well as far as Danny Jones being a more mobile quarterback than people realize or people think. I think that's starting to show. We would get after him and then he would slide through into the second level and get a first down. So on the offensive side, Trevor had some really good throws. He has some confident throws to the outside, which are hard throws to make, especially on 3rd and short situations. You need 3 yards, and he's getting exactly that. So that's good. But we need to start throwing the ball downfield, and I think we mentioned it at the game. We're not opening the playbook up. We're not getting a lot of deep balls. It's making the secondary kind of easy to keep everything in front of them when we're not throwing it past 15 or 20 yards down the field.
Yeah, to me, it feels like when we're watching them on offense, like they're playing on rookie and everyone else is playing on veteran when it comes down to the play calling. It's either passes behind the line of scrimmage, bubble screens, screen plays out of the backfield, or it's those drags underneath towards the sideline to pick up 3 or 4 yards, and then the occasional 15, 20-yard pass to pick up first downs down the field. But we haven't really seen them open up the playbook. And part of me wonders, is that a limitation that's caused by Trevor, or is that an occurrence that is limiting Trevor? Are they hesitant because of what they see on film or in practice, or are they trying to ease him into the system? Obviously, this being the 7th game, with the new offensive coordinator and the new coaching staff. But you mentioned turnovers. They won the turnover battle by 1, and it was probably the first turning point of the game, right before halftime, 4 minutes to go. ETN had one man to beat going into the end zone, would have gone up 18-10 at that point. Fumbles on the 10-yard line. And ball security, you were talking about it at the game. He's got to hold it. He's got to hold on to the ball. And he fumbles. Giants recover. Place erupts with Giants fans. And then the Giants go down there. And I believe they kicked a field goal right before the half expired. So that's a 10-point swing if you think about it. You know, they go in 13-11 instead of down 18-10 at the half. So very frustrating fumble there. And then the turnovers, our one interception we had was taken away by a roughing the passer call. Foye Aluakon intercepted a pass right over the middle, which could have been a massive turning point in the game for the Jags. However, got called back because of roughing the passer. But then the one sack on the day, Trayvon Walker got the sack, pressure by Josh Allen off the opposite end. But I think what we learned is just how difficult it is to sack a mobile quarterback. And Danny Dimes, 107 yards on the ground on 11 carries. We made him look like Lamar Jackson. We made him look like Patrick Mahomes. They just didn't scheme well defensively to guard the edge when they did those zone options, those read options. And the Jags do the read options, but 95% of the time they hand it off. The Giants do the read options, 50% of the time they're handing it off. The other 50, Danny's keeping it. And I think that's why it's so successful.
Yeah, I agree. Danny Jones has confidence with those the read options and when he does have to scramble. I do want to go back though to the turning points. That fumble, it was a killer. You could feel it in the stadium. We were driving down. We had that big play before, plus a penalty that got tacked on to get us in to the red zone. Very frustrating. You get that before the half, and we had 11, so you would have been up 18. Ideally, we would have had 18 points. You did say, though, that they kicked the field goal as the time expired. That's not what happened. We got the ball back, and we made a push to try to move the ball down the field. And I just wanted to say it is kind of insignificant. It didn't matter. But the fact that we did trust Trevor to try to get a Hail Mary, he got the ball to the end zone. He threw it like 60 yards in the air. The kid's got a great arm. I think in yesteryears, we might have run out the clock, try to go into half with the score what it is. We tried to get the ball in the field goal range. When that didn't work, we chucked it up on fourth down, and the time expired. So again, insignificant. A lot of people probably didn't notice or care, but I feel like that shows that we want to be competitive and be aggressive when, in previous years, maybe we would have just gone into the half with the score being what it was. So, I felt that was a key moment, though, like you said, and then the interception that was called back because of the roughing the passer penalty. Guys trying to make a play. He was going in at the quarterback. It's unfortunate. I've always been kind of on the side of guys are just trying to make plays as long as it's not dirty, as long as it's not, unnecessary. Sometimes it just is what it is.
Yeah, if it's not egregious, I think I think they do kind of overprotect, and I think everyone just on both sides of the ball, because then we ended up getting a roughing the passer in our favor later in the game to extend the drive. Right. So it happens on both sides of the ball. I would just rather it not happen at all because it does change the outcome of the game. I will say that the interception that got wiped off the board, they ended up getting it down to the goal line, and the defense stood up and didn't allow a touchdown from the 1 yard line. So I think it was 2nd and goal from the 3, and then it turned into 3rd and 1 from the 1, or 3rd and goal from the 1. And then we held them on 2 straight 1 yard plays from the end zone or from the 1 yard line and got the ball back. We ended up punting 3 plays later.
Right away, yeah.
It's not, I'm not surprised by that at all because the team barely shows signs of being able to go 75 yards and score, let alone 99 yards and score. But I guess chalk it up to ball don't lie, and they ended up not getting any points there. So it was nice to hold them off there. Other turning point in the game obviously came right at the end of the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter, coming out of the fourth quarter, at the beginning of the fourth quarter. They did a 2nd and 5, Christian Kirk reverse sweep. Looked like he clearly got the first down. I kind of went back and watched it today. I could see why they didn't call it a first down. They set up 3rd and 1 here. I'm going to let you take a look at these plays real quick. For anyone watching online, I have still shots up right now. If you're watching the YouTube video, there's Christian Kirk, you can't even see him. He's behind 37, past the orange marker, and then you see him on the ground at the 18-yard line, 19-yard line. And then even when the ref comes over to spot the ball, he initially has him spot it past the line to gain. And then I don't know what happened. I don't know where it went wrong, where the spot ended up moving back to the 20. But then the very next play, ETN, wildcat formation. We've seen him do it before, takes it up the middle, and here's some other still shots. ETN on the ground right around like the 19.5, past the yellow line, which is obviously an estimate. So there's that. And then ETN on the ground here, past the white line. But then you look at the spot, and it's more than halfway on the other side of the 20. It's the spots on those two plays were just very questionable. You'd like to think that they can get a first down on 3rd and 1, and then they go for it on 4th and 1 and don't get it. The place erupts again, more so than it did on the ETN fumble. And then the Giants are able to take the ball and go down the field and then go up 20-17 at that point after the turnover on downs there. But what's really frustrating to me about that turnover on downs is it just goes back to not being able to not only finish games, but not able to finish drives. Like it's I don't want people to sit here and think, oh, they just can't finish games. Like there are times where they are 1st and goal from the 5 and they're settling for field goals, or
right.
They're at the 35. We saw it in the game against the Colts where ETN springs a nice run to the 20 and Trevor takes a 15-yard sack to move out of field goal range. Like they're just not finishing drives at all. And on that play where it was turnover on downs, that was a 12-play, 6-minute drive that resulted in 0 points, to which the Giants turned around and came down the field and scored a touchdown to go up 2017. Just a terrible, terrible turn of events there for the Jaguars. The Jaguars would then go on to make it somewhat competitive, held the Giants to another field goal to make it 23-17, and 2 penalties on the final drive, 1 minute left, 75 yards to go. We end up working it down to the 18-yard line and a 17-yard pass to Christian Kirk right at the 1-yard line, down at the 1, like not the Music City Miracle, but that Super Bowl with the Titans and the Rams, where the guy, right, Kevin Dyson, I think it was down at the 1-yard line, is what happened to the Jags. Another late game drive coming up just short, not resulting in points and not resulting in the wins. That's 5 times now this year in all 5 losses that the Jags have had the ball to end the game and not find a way to go and score to win the game.
Yeah, it's brutal and it's tough losing like that. Back to that drive with ETN. It's tough. I mean, Kirk, he kind of went sideways as he got hit. It was weird. And then ETN, like, you just got to get low and dive forward. The spot was questionable. If you challenge it, those are always the toughest to kind of overturn or what have you. On that note, though, I'm tired, and I see it all the time, not just the Jags, but these coaches, especially in close games, they're just using timeouts at points in the game where you don't need to. I think the Jaguars used one on 3rd and short when we were on defense. I can't remember exactly when. It might have been late in the 3rd quarter, maybe before we got the ball back. I can't remember when. It was 3rd and short, and it was in a situation where even if we stop them, the Giants are probably going to go for it on 4th and short. So I don't fully understand the reason for using the timeout there. In a close game like this, and most of the Jaguars games are close games, you need to save all 3 timeouts until you're at least under 5 minutes. And whether that's you're on defense and you need to stop the clock, or you're on offense and you're trying to get a drive, we could have used them at the end. We either would have used them on defense and had more time for Lawrence, or we would have had timeouts for Lawrence to use on the final drive. So I don't know who's in charge of that. I don't know if, I think I'm smarter than I am, and that's like maybe not a thing that coaches maybe need to manage. But I feel like, especially with the young quarterback, especially with the team that's going to be playing a lot of close games, you need to manage the timeouts better. On that note, also, we went for it on 4th down. I'm a big proponent of going for it on 4th down. I like it, especially if you're confident and you practice it. It was 17-3. If we kick a field goal there instead of go for it on 4th and 1, we're up a touchdown. With that said, if our kicker makes the extra point after the Trevor Lawrence touchdown earlier in the half, We're up 18-3. We kick a field goal. I think we kick the field goal if we're up 18-3, because then we go up 18-13. Because then we go up 21-13. We're up 8, and now the Giants have to score and get a 2-point conversion. So that just shows you that the extra points, it can go into decisions later in the game. I still think we probably should have kicked a field goal there, even though I do like the aggressiveness. I just had a feeling that the Giants were going to get the ball and run it right down the field with Saquon, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, it's a do or die decision there, because if you pick up that first down, which it kind of looked like they had already done, and maybe they were just frustrated and like, all right, let's just get this first down and move past it. They let the mistakes pile on top of each other, and it turned into a turnover on downs. But if you get that first down there, you chew off more clock, and then you potentially go up 8, or you potentially go up 14 there, and you make it a 25, or you go up 14 there, right? It would have been
no. We would have, if we get that first down and we get a touchdown, we would have been up 11.
We would have been up 11. So you make it a 2-score game. Let's say 10 minutes left on the clock, whatever it is, and it's a 2-score game. You trust your defense to come out and not let them score twice at the end of the game. So it's a do or die decision. I want your opinion on this. Would you rather Doug Peterson go for it on every 4th and 1 between the 35 and 50, or just go for 2 every time? If you had to have him do one thing every time moving forward, is it let's go for 2, or let's go for the 4th and 1, go for the first down?
I'm going for 2. I mean, I think that again, you have to just practice it. You have to have plays lined up. But I think, again, I don't know the rules, but they had the defense on that first touchdown. The Giants had the penalty that caused us to go for 2. So I don't know like the yardage situation, but I think making teams pay for mistakes like that is awesome. I think that if you have the confidence to do it, it can really change the game. But like I said, we went for 2, we got it. If we kick the extra point and we're up 18-13, and then you get the field goal, the math just works out where you're kind of ahead by a point or 2 points than you normally would. But those are tough questions to answer in a vacuum, because there is such thing as game vibes. There is such thing as momentum. There is such thing as the crowd and the momentum and how you're feeling about everything. I'm usually on the side of being more aggressive, but again, that's assuming that you have the plays ready to go. Patrick Mahomes on 4th down, if it's up to 4th and 7, I almost want Patrick Mahomes to go for it, because I believe him and the players around him and the coach have prepared to pick up that yardage.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. They have the aggressiveness in the head coach. They just haven't figured out a 4th down play yet. That's the big problem. Is against the Colts, they went for it on 4th down, and they did like a jet sweep toss with ETN, and that got blown up. What's up?
That was awful, yeah.
Like, they just don't have a play, like a reliable play, and it doesn't help that, third down happens, and then there's a 25-second play clock, so now you're trying to get everyone together for your 4th down play, and if you don't have one solidified, you're scrambling, and then there's 4 seconds on the play clock before you know it, and you're trying to just snap the ball as quickly as you can and make it work. It's a mess if you don't have a play. I mean, you look at what the Eagles have done with Jalen Hurts. I'm pretty sure they're 100% on the season on the 4th and 1 QB sneaks with Jalen Hurts. If you have a play call like that, do it every time. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is like 6'4", 6'5". He's a big guy that's capable of picking up a yard on a quarterback sneak in those situations. I would be okay with them quarterback sneaking it every 4th and 1, even if they only picked it up 60% of the time, because I just feel like that's the highest percentage play to run there. Back to the timeout that they used on the short 3rd down. It was a very dumb timeout. There were 11 guys on the field for the Jags, but one of the guys apparently wasn't supposed to be in that scheme, so they were trying to swap him off for another player. But it was unnecessary because, like you said, even if they picked up that play or didn't make it, they were going for it anyway. So unnecessary use of a timeout there. And all 5 games have been by 1 score or less. The timeouts are necessary. They could have taken a timeout at the end of the game on the 1-yard line with a chance to punch it in. Who knows what happens there? But I will say Saquon Barkley helped us out on the final drive. He ran out of bounds twice. They got the ball back with 4 minutes and 30 seconds left and picked up 3 first downs on that drive. And typically that's enough for a team to ice a game. But on the 3rd down play, Saquon Barkley takes it to the side and his foot slips out from under him. He was trying to slide, but it was obvious that his foot went out of bounds first. They end up taking the clock from 24 seconds all the way back up to 1 minute and 4 seconds. And the Giants kick the field goal to go up 6, and Trevor Lawrence and the Jags get the ball back with 1 minute to go. 2 penalties later, the Jags are up to like the 20-yard line, and then we all know what happened from there. So anything else from you regarding the Giants game before we move ahead to the Week 8 game?
No, it's just kind of funny because when they scored after we went for it on 4th down, we had 3 penalties in a row on defense. One was an offensive pass interference on the left side of the end zone. Questionable call. It didn't look crazy, but that got them to get the ball on the 1-yard line. Very next play, Jags flagged for 12 men on the field. Right? Half the distance to the goal line. Very next play, encroachment. That doesn't matter. You're on the 1-yard line. It's not killing us, but it's just more of a discipline and an embarrassing thing. You just give up a penalty, pass interference. They're on the 1-yard line. You have too many men on the field. Probably wouldn't have stopped Saquon anyways. So that's frustrating. But on the flip side, the Giants then had 3 penalties in a row on their last defensive drive when we went to go score. I think it was back-to-back holdings on the defense, and one of those was an interception that got called back for holding. And then on the deep pass, we also we were the beneficiary of a roughing the passer. So, all in all, and I have the stats here, very even game, same amount of first downs. We had like 18 more yards than them. We averaged about the same yards per play. We were 6 for 13 on 3rd down. They were 6 for 12. The time of possession, they beat us by like 9 minutes. And then the penalties was the big kicker. We had 5 more penalties, only 15 more penalty yards or 14 more penalty yards. But again, when you only have 1 yard of a penalty on the goal line, it doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. Again, it's just kind of the mindset that we got to work on and cleaning that up.
Yeah, it definitely comes down to the discipline. We've seen Trayvon Walker have his fair share of roughing the passers that have both led to touchdowns to take the lead for the opposing team on long 3rd down attempts against the Texans and against the Colts. So we've seen that happen now twice from Trayvon Walker. But it is frustrating in that sense. We're shooting ourselves in the foot. It doesn't feel like we're getting outplayed in a lot of these games. It just feels like we're shooting ourselves in the foot. I'll say the most frustrating part for me, outside of capping off drives and letting the Colts in Week 6 throw the ball over the middle 50 times or whatever, the most frustrating thing for me is watching the offense put up 400 yards and score less than 20 points.
Yeah.
You're gaining the length of the field 4 times over, and you're scoring 3 times. It's just unacceptable for an offense to do that. 2 weeks ago against the Texans, they put up 420 yards and scored 6 points.
It's brutal.
And the Texans put up 250 and won 13-6. And then against the Colts, we put up 380. And then in this game, we put up 450. So the offense is moving the ball. They're just not finishing, capitalizing on the yards that they're gaining. So we're definitely going to have to see that get corrected. But let's move ahead to the Broncos game. The Jags fall to 2-5 with that loss to the Giants in a spot where 3 weeks ago we were sitting here thinking we might be 5-2. Mm-hmm. Like, let's not forget, coming off that Eagles game, a lot of us were thinking, we could be 4-3, 5-2. This is feeling good. Now we're 2-5. So there's that. But if you're watching on YouTube, go find the second part to this video where we break down and preview the Jaguars Broncos game. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, stay right here. We will get back with the Broncos preview and more NFL talk. But again, on YouTube, go find the second video in the channel and be sure to subscribe, like and subscribe to the channel as well. Help us grow. Just a fun Jaguars podcast, trying to give you all the content you can handle.